What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Salt and Pauper video. Today we're going to continue our Phyrexia All Will Be One Pauper set review. I have been adding a little rules recap of all of the new rules and token types that are coming with this set. We're going to jump right into that, but if you've already seen it, if you've watched the other videos, or you just don't need a rules recap, you can go ahead and skip ahead to the actual cards. I'll leave timestamps down below in the bottom. Let's jump right in. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Salt and Pauper video. Today we are going to begin our full Pauper set review for the Phyrexia All Will Be One set. But before we dive into that, let's make sure you guys understand the keywords and some of the new rules mechanics coming to the game. Okay, first off, we have oil counters. Oil counters are a new type of counter that will be placed on permanents and tracked. Think of it like charge counters or energy, similar to those type of effects. These creatures and or machines or artifacts mostly are going to have abilities that require you to spend oil counters to activate. Next up, we have a returning mechanic, Proliferate. For those of you who don't know how this works, I'll give you the exact text, but it is a keyword. It's an action that states choose any number of permanents and or players that have a counter, then give one additional counter of each kind that permanent or player already has. So for each permanent or player you choose, they get an extra counter of every counter they have. You don't get to pick a specific kind of counter to proliferate. Say that this player has a poison and an experience counter, right? Poison is good for you, experience is good for them. If you want to proliferate them, you have to give them both. So keep that in mind. It's a small interaction, but it might be useful to know about. Next up, we have Corrupted. Corrupted is a new keyword that is going to alter cards based on the amount of poison a player has. Corrupted triggers if a player has 3 or more poison counters, specifically an opponent. So you will see spells that have additional effects or better effects if your opponent has 3 or more poison counters. Speaking of poison counters, what are poison counters? Poison counters are a tracked counter on players that are given through Infect, Toxic, some other effects on cards that will just straight up give poison counters. But if a player ever has 10 or more poison counters, they lose the game. Think of this like an emblem. You just track them outside of life totals, and if they ever have 10, they lose. Speaking of ways to give people poison counters, Toxic. Toxic is a new keyword that is replacing Infect from older Phyrexian type sets. Toxic is a static number of poison counters this creature grants during combat. So a Toxic 2 creature, regardless of its power in combat, will deal its regular damage. In addition, it will also grant 2 poison counters. This effect does stack. So if you have a Toxic 2 creature and you give it Toxic 1, it will give 3 poison counters if it hits a player. Keep in mind, this effect does not use the stack. It resolves with damage, similar to Lifelink. It is not a triggered ability. How is this different from Poisonous? If you're familiar with that keyword, I mean, the long and short of it is it's not. Yes, technically, poison was a triggered ability, so it resolved after damage, but there's not a whole lot of gameplay scenarios in which you're going to need to know that difference. But otherwise, it is the new way to give players poison counters. And lastly, we have a new rebel ability called For Mirrodin. For Mirrodin is a keyword found on some equipment in the set that creates a 2/2 red rebel creature token when the equipment enters the battlefield and then attaches the equipment to it. So think of this like the new Living Weapon. Living Weapon was an older version of a Phyrexian ability on equipment that made a 0/0 germ token and attached the equipment as it entered play. This is a 2/2 body at standard. So it is more expensive. You'll see a lot of the equipment in this set cost more mana than you would otherwise think they should, but they do come with a 2/2 creature automatically wearing it, so that is something to keep in mind. All right, there's one last new thing to talk about, which is a new token type called a Phyrexian Might. These are 1/1 artifact creature tokens that have Toxic 1 and cannot block. Lots of cards are creating these. Sometimes they create it on ETB, sometimes they create it on Death, but remember, these cards have Toxic, so they're going to deal combat damage and poison counters, and they can't block, so that's a really important thing to be aware of in this limited. That wraps up all the rules, guys. Let's go ahead and jump right into the color reviews. All right, man. What's up, Josh? Welcome back. You guys, you ready to dive into some black cards?
Oh, am I? This is the
All
most
right.
exciting color so far.
Is it? All right, well, let's find out. First card up is going to be a sorcery called Annihilating Glare. It's a 1 black sorcery as an additional cost to cast the spell. Pay 4 or sacrifice an artifact or creature. Usually it's one or the other, so getting the option there is kind of nice. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. So this is one of the, several bone shards like bone shards like variants that we've gotten in recent sets. This having 2 different card types it can sacrifice is super interesting. God, if this was an instant, it would be so good. But as a sorcery, I mean, do we need another bone shards? Like, how good is it really?
Not exactly. And I mean, we have kind of an instant speed version of this already. It's just in Voltage Surge.
Mm-hmm.
Without the additional cost, it's either a shock or deal 4, which deals with, well, I want to say, everything. And it's instant. So I don't really see Annihilating Glare opening anything up.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree here. I think it's super interesting that we're starting to get more and more variations on this, and this one is like really close to good, man. If this was an instant, it would be like incredibly playable.
Mm-hmm.
But as a sorcery, yeah, I'm not sure this cuts it.
Yeah, I'm not too sure it does either. It could read like if you wanted to really try and force a black red artifact sacrifice deck, this card's probably in there, but I'm not saying it's going to be a good deck.
All right. Moving on. Next one up is Anoint with Affliction. This one is an instant. For 2 and a black, you get exile target creature if its mana value 3 or less. Corrupted, exile that creature instead. So this is like corrupted extreme cast down. Just straight up exiles a creature. We haven't seen we haven't seen a hard black exile in a while, right? It's been like, I don't know, unmake maybe.
Yeah, like an unconditional one.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, unmake's
because we had a
probably
few
what
that
comes to
like
mind.
if the creature dies, then exile it, but no, just straight up exile target creatures.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the closest one that comes to this is that grotesque demise from one of the
Mm-hmm.
Ravnica sets, but that cost 1 more mana and worked off of power
Yeah.
instead of mana value.
Now,
So I think this is just a better smother.
yeah, it's pretty good. I don't know how good corrupted is. I'm still very kind of bearish on that. I don't expect it to be good. I literally never expect to have it. So how good is this card without it? I think this card's probably pretty good without it. I mean, in
Yeah,
competitive Pauper right now, this targets like most of the stuff you want to kill.
yeah, this hits definitely in the stuff that's in the big decks that you're trying to beat, to be viable.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no single creature from any of the red decks that I can think of that this does not hit
Yeah,
base without corrupted.
yeah,
So that being in mind, I mean, this is against those decks. This is still just a cast down,
yep.
but Yeah, it's got possible upside against others.
So I
So
guess
there's
what are the exiles that we're really looking for to be impactful in constructed Pauper? I mean, because this doesn't, at least at base, hit anything in Affinity, which is a recursion deck. Um, this doesn't at base hit like the important pieces of Flickertron or familiars. I guess it hits the familiar. It just doesn't hit Archaeomancer. Um, in Cog 8, I mean, I guess you could just exile Sacred Cats. That seems fine. But it's not like it hits Guardian or anything like that. Um, doesn't hit Terror or like Gurmag Angler or anything. I don't know. This card seems like if you can consistently trigger Corrupted, this card's bonkers. But without Corrupted, what I assume to be the majority of the time, this card is like okay against some of the meta. I mean, it's not cast down, but it's close.
and there's nothing really in particular. I'm thinking that this hits at base. That is in a deck that cares about the graveyard.
Yeah. Yeah, all I can really think of is like the familiar, right?
Mhm.
Because it can hit the
Yeah.
familiar out of familiars, but that's pretty much it. And most of the time, they're just gonna snap it anyway.
Yeah, or even the their infinite life gain source.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Moving right along, we have Blightbelly Rat, which is a really interesting card. So this is a 2-mana 2/2 for a black and a colorless. You get a Phyrexian Rat with Toxic 1, and when it dies, proliferate. So this is one of the common, additional proliferate cards. It has Toxic, but it's only Toxic 1. Really wishing this was Toxic 2.
Mhm.
I still strongly disagree with the fact that Toxic is only like a negative or a net even or net negative equation to regular combat damage. Really wish this was standard infect, but alas. Um, Dying to proliferate on a 2/2 for 2 is not nothing.
Yeah. And then also just looking at the art on the card inspires me to want to run green with it. And I'm thinking Rancor is probably this card's best friend.
Yeah, art's
So
pretty good. I don't know,
um,
Rancor.
it does not get ahead on damage that or on the with the infect that way, but
Yeah.
it does still push damage forward. And there's probably better bears or better 2-drops to put it
Yeah,
on.
but
In
it's
fact,
like
I would bet.
I'm just trying to think if
Mhm.
there's anything I want to proliferate that isn't poison counters. Because I don't think this card is good at giving poison, right? So you're not usually going to use proliferate for poison counters in this card. Maybe in the deck that this card's in, you could focus a little bit. But if you're doing that, you probably have to play blue. So you're playing blue black proliferate with like what is it, like Vile Stinger and like Blighted Agent and Thrumming
Mhm.
Bird, and you're just trying to
Yeah.
like proliferate, but um and maybe this has a home in that, but I don't think you get green out of it unless you want to go like
Yeah.
green black infect with Vile Stinger and what is it? Not Blighted Agent, the 1/1 for 1 with infect from green. But then you don't get Thrumming
Oh,
Bird,
yeah.
and I think that Thrumming Bird is going to be like very core if there is an infect strategy in Pauper. Thrumming Bird is gonna be in the deck. Um,
Yeah. Well, there's a card coming up that I don't really see what Thrumming Bird does differently. Um,
all right,
in terms of what an effect deck would be wanting to do.
sure.
Uh,
Do you have anything else for this one?
no, there's nothing else really
Okay.
enticing about this guy.
Next up is Bonepicker Skirge, which is a 2/2 Phyrexian Imp for 3 mana, 2 and a black. It says flying, and then if you have corrupted, it's as long as an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, it has Death Touch and Lifelink. This is one of those cards that like I don't get. Like it wants
Mhm.
to be Nighthawk, it's not Nighthawk. It wants your opponent to be poison, but it doesn't give poison counters. I just what does this want to do? Does this want to do combat damage, or does this want to like be on the defensive and chump block to like gain value and some life to stabilize the board, which is not what Infect usually wants to do. This card confuses me.
Yep, you took the words right out of my mouth. This card is very confused in honestly just the word corrupted.
Yeah.
Yeah, it throws everything off the rails. But I'm not seeing this really going anywhere.
Yeah, I don't. This is definitely not Nighthawk. Like,
Yeah.
Nighthawk downshift maybe, but this is not it. All right. Next up we have Cruel Grimnarch, which is Jesus. That's 6 mana. It's a 5/5 Phyrexian cleric for 6, 5 and a black. It says Death Touch. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. For each opponent who can't, you gain 4 life. This is like as limited gets. I don't think this is going anywhere else.
Yeah, we've got a cheaper Death Touch creature, and that doesn't see play with the same body size.
Yeah.
And honestly, if your opponent has cards in their hand while you are playing black at the turn where you have 6 mana, then you are either not focused on discard or, I mean, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine this ever getting played over like Grey Merchant or Vampire, Sovereign. They're just so much better and they cost less. It's not conditional on your opponent as to whether or not you gain life. I can't imagine this card as being very good. Let's
sweep that one under the rug.
Yeah. All right. Cutthroat Centurion. Man, this card was so close to amazing. 2/2 Phyrexian Warrior. It's an artifact creature. For 3 mana, 2 and a black. It says sacrifice an artifact or creature. It gets +2/+2.
And that's it. That's it. No, nothing else. And it's a good card.
Activate only once each turn.
Oh, why did you say it?
Honestly, this was so close. This was as close as we've gotten to like straight up Veteratog. And nope, they had to go and print probably the worst design choice in Magic ever. Right after
at least it doesn't say sorcery.
Just above activate only at sorcery speed. Right? Literally just above is activate only once each turn. God, I hate this design, but I mean the card looks awesome and I wish it was good. Like it was so close to good.
Sure. It definitely has Putrid Leech Syndrome.
Yeah, it was so close to being so good. This would have easily been the most playable card in the set without that last line of text.
Right? And then this would have slotted into that red-black sacrifice deck that I talked about and maybe have been okay. But,
It probably wouldn't have been okay in Affinity. But, who plays that? Anyway.
I've never met someone who plays against Affinity.
I have never met anyone else that plays Affinity. In real life. Alright, next up, Fleshless Gladiator. It's a 2/2 for Phyrexian Skeleton for 2 mana, a black and a colorless. It has Corrupted, pay 3 mana, 2 and a black, return Fleshless Gladiator from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. You lose 1 life. Activate only if an opponent has 3 or more poison counters. As far as this type of mechanic goes, is this the first time we've seen it on a 2/2?
Usually,
Usually
on the
it's like
better
1/1
ones, they're like
skeletons and
2/1
stuff, right?
or 3/1.
Yeah.
But yeah.
For 3 mana, 3 mana is not very much. Like that's pretty good to buy back your 2/2 from the graveyard. But again, this is one of those cards that's very confused. It has Corrupted and it has nothing to do with poison. So I question what this card's goal is.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to like push this deck type to have like this. You're gonna get them to like 3 to 6 poison before they die of regular damage, to enable your deck. But most of the time, it's just more efficient to kill them with Infect or focus on just killing them with regular damage instead of this double game.
Yeah. I think that there's two cards that will help in this set in black towards giving poison counters and enabling corrupted, but I think those go in a deck that have 0 toxic or infect creatures.
Yeah, probably.
Um,
Because they go into a deck with all infect creatures. Because that effect is just infinitely better at doing what these cards want to do.
yeah, but yeah, Fleshless Gladiator, just without the ability to put the poison counters on, I think it would go in that deck
Oh
that
yeah,
runs,
certainly.
um, that puts them to maybe 3 poison counters and just stops. And that's all incidental. Because these cards that give poison counters later on, they do something else.
Mm-hmm.
Like they get you advantage in some way.
Yeah.
So those cards are viable on their own. But we'll get there when we get there.
All right. Next up is Gulping Scraptrap. It's a 4/4 Phyrexian Horror for 5 mana, 4 and a black. When it enters the battlefield or dies, proliferate. Now, this card was really close for me. Similar to like the almost a Tog we had just a second ago. If this card said enters or leaves the battlefield instead of enters the battlefield or dies, proliferate, it would be very good. But largely this is another limited card. Like, you're never paying 5 mana for this effect. It's just not strong enough. And man, is that artwork absolutely terrifying.
There's that one creature. It's like was he a 7/3 for 4 mana? That's all I see when I look at this art.
Hmm.
Um,
You mean like Cloud Thresher?
maybe he's not 7. Is he 9? He's a black creature. Costs 4 mana. They did a whole like secret lair where he was in a bunch of different cards, like explore.
Oh, you mean like Yargle or whatever?
Yeah, I want to say that's his name.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know what you're
Yargle,
talking about.
Button of Verborg.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I see when I look at this art.
Fair enough. All right, well, let's look at the next art then.
Oh yeah.
Infectious Inquiry is actually a good card. It is a 3-mana sorcery. For 2 and a black, you get you draw 2 cards, you lose 2 life. Each opponent gets a poison counter. Now, just a strange semantic. It's very strange to me that they say each opponent gets a poison counter instead of each opponent gains a poison counter, when that has kind of been the terminology used for a lot of these type of things. Right? They don't say each creature gets a 1/1 counter. They say each creature gains a 1/1 counter. So it's interesting to me that a player gets a counter but a creature gains a counter. It's just strange language choice for me. It kind of seemed off-putting and off the norm.
They have that for the toxic keyword? No, the toxic keyword is get.
Yeah, I don't
Maybe
know.
infect is something similar. But usually when I think of get, it seems like you're dealing it to them, like you're giving them one,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to if they gain one, then it's like,
Oh,
oh,
maybe it's based on who's giving the thing. Anyway, this card's pretty good. It's like the blue one, right? Except I think the blue one's better. It effectively draws 2 and then both players lose 2 life, if you're going with the infect plan. So that's pretty good. Wish this was either a double black spell or an instant. One of the two would have made this card considerably better than it is. As a sorcery speed, it's going to be fairly limited in efficacy just because it's a 3-drop. But overall, I mean, I like ways to give opponents poison counters that doesn't involve combat, and this is one of the few ways to do that.
yeah. And I think that this card is pretty pushed on its power level at common already. So I don't know if they could have made it instant. Maybe 4 mana makes it an instant, but I don't think it's playable then.
Well, we got the card from like Dominaria United, right? The like better Knight's Whisper for 2+ colors that was like domain, reveal X cards, pick 2 of them, lose 2 life at instant.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was 3.
That was
That's
a 3-minute instant, and it was like, look at the top, 3 probably, pick 2 of them, put 2 in your hand, lose 2 life.
Um, yeah, so it had a floor of only being able to do it for one, though.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a bad floor, but you just don't run it in mono black, right? But in two
Oh yeah, of
colors,
course.
it's just instant speed Night's Whisper, and paying one more mana is definitely worth that. So
Absolutely.
this is like really close to that for me, and I just wish this was also an instant. It would make this card considerably better and like not questionably playable. Right now, I think it's pretty questionably playable.
Yeah, I think this card gets better with the stronger 1 mana removal spell options you have. Just
Sure.
like, because if
Yeah,
this
definitely.
your draw is getting more expensive, you want your other interaction to be cheaper.
Yeah. All right. What do we got? Next up is Offer Immortality, which is a 2 mana instant for a black and a colorless. Target creature gains Death Touch and Indestructible until end of turn. Um, I mean, this card's largely good, I think, but only in like only in limited as an anti-combat trick. This screams, what was it in the last set that I was like, it's close to good but not good enough. Take up the shield, I think, where like the instances you want to use it are on
Yeah.
defense, and its offensive characteristics are largely wasted because if you preemptively cast it, you're opening yourself up for card disadvantage. And I think
Yes.
this is the same, right? You never want to cast this uh, in order to give something death touch, like after you've blocked to try to kill something, because you're opening yourself up to a 2-for-1. You want to cast this to give something
Mhm.
indestructible when they try to like remove a blocker, and then you can just dissuade an attack altogether, and that's fine. But I just don't think those situations are going to arise a whole bunch. And this also doesn't have like an equalizing factor. Like the reason that Unexpected Fangs is so good is because you gain life out of it, right? So this
Mhm.
not having like lifelink, it doesn't gain like undying, you don't get anything permanent. I just don't think this is worth 2 mana and a card slot for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's another one that's similar to this, same mana cost, Death Touch, but you draw a card,
Mm-hmm.
and that one I think is better than this.
Definitely.
Yeah, this card only you only gain advantage if um you do it in response to a removal spell, and in which case it's 1-for-1. But if you were blocking something smaller previously, then the Death Touch doesn't matter. It's where like if they're trying to kill your creature.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like it has some play in the terms of if your creature is more valuable in the combat,
Mm-hmm.
then you're casting it for the indestructible. But if theirs is more valuable, you're casting it for the death touch. And I don't think you ever want to be casting it for just the death touch, like you said.
Probably not. No.
But yeah, that's it. This card's not going anywhere else.
All right. Next up is Pestilent Syphoner, which is a 1/1 Phyrexian insect for 2, 1 and a black, and it has flying and toxic 1.
Mhm.
This is where I want to be. This is what toxic should have been. This card could just say infect and it would be fine. I mean, it would be better. I mean, it'd just be Vile Stinger number 2, right? But this is
Mhm.
just worse Vile Stinger, and I don't see a compelling reason to play this over Vile Stinger. In fact, I think there are several reasons to run Vile Stinger over this. And the only reason you'd play this is if you need more Vile Stingers. And since Vile Stinger is not a card that's even seeing a marginal fringe play, I don't think it's really gonna need to be discussed much.
Yeah, you're correct. It doesn't really need to be discussed too much. I will say this is the card that I was talking about being effectively Thrumming Bird, at least in a mono black or
Sure.
non-blue shell.
Mm-hmm.
Because he does still need to hit to give them
Mm-hmm.
a poison counter, but Thrumming does have
Now,
um,
what I will say is this
more
lines
benefits.
up very well with Thrumming because they've changed Toxic to not be a triggered effect. I mean, even though if you're an active player, you can stack the
Yeah,
triggers as
you
you
choose
want.
stack them however you want.
Um,
Mhm.
this does interact favorably, right? They get the poison counter and then you proliferate, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
That's it for me. I mean, this is just less good Vile Stinger. I'm gonna run Vile Stingers.
yeah. I mean, it does have the evasion and the toxic,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but yeah,
All right, next up we have Sheoldred's Headcleaver, which is probably my favorite art in the set. This art is absolutely baller. It is a 2/4 Phyrexian warrior for 4 mana, 3 and a black. Has Menace and Toxic too. I mean, it's not good, but man, is that art pretty. Like, this art looks
Right.
so good. That Phyrexian Executioner looks absolutely amazing. And what an axe, dude. What an axe.
Absolutely. And I like how it's already got some ichor on it,
Yeah.
as if he's already swung this at the same thing, because you see it's picking it up and it's dropping off the... Yeah.
See,
Very cool
I
art.
read that as just the poison on his blade that gives him toxic, but it could very well be ichor.
Yeah, I don't know what Phyrexians look like on the inside.
That's fair. I assume they have oil. Otherwise, why do we have it?
You show me one Phyrexian with oil.
Several.
No.
All right. Next up is Stinging Hivemaster, which is a really interesting card. So it's a 3/2 Phyrexian Warlock. Warlock for some reason. For 3, for 2 and a black. It has Toxic 1, and when Stinging Hivemaster dies, you create a 1/1 Might token. This card just misses the mark for me. I wish that it made either 2 Might tokens or it had Toxic 2. Like,
yep.
It's just barely not enough. Or even if this was a 2/2 for 2 with this effect and Toxic 1, I would take it. But as a 3-drop, this just doesn't do enough for me.
Yeah, as a 3-drop, make it a 2/2, make 2 1/1 mites. That'd be fine. Or if it had something... I'm looking for a card that gives your mites some sort of evasion. Like, I want them to have flying or menace or something.
Yeah.
And the cards and the colors that could do that haven't. So I don't think mites are going to be the way forward.
I agree.
That
And
being
there really
said,
aren't that many ways to make them. So, like, you can't, like, critical mass them and then, like, alpha strike with them either.
exactly. And the cards you can use to make them are not really good. Like, there's other cards that are better.
Yep. All right. Next up is Testament Bearer. It is a 4/1. God, I hate that power toughness. Phyrexian Warrior for 4, 3 and a black. I hate that cost too. When it dies, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them in your hand and the rest of your graveyard. This card's bad.
Is there any reason this can't cost 3?
No. No, there isn't. This could be an exact opposite to Augur of Bolus. Like this, or not Augur of Bolus, to Seagate Oracle. This could be a 3-mana 3/1 Seagate Oracle, but instead of ETB it'd be died. It'd still be bad, but at least then it would make sense. Because as a 4/1 for 4, this card just screams like, I'm going to lose value and then try to make it up with incremental card advantage on the dies trigger, but it's just not worth the 4-mana investment.
Yeah. There's... this story of this set. There are other cards with better effects.
This card doesn't really make sense. It's confused. It's another one of the confused cards that doesn't really know which direction it wants to go. Like, it's very one-dimensional in the fact that they were like, haha, give it 1 toughness and it wants to die. But, like, this is a very aggressive body on a very non-aggressive mana cost.
Absolutely.
And it's a card advantage ability, which is a value-oriented ability, which is not an aggressive ability, which is what the power and toughness would lead you to believe it wants to be. Yeah, not a fan of this card.
Yeah, I would say that there's one word that could be put on this card that would completely change how I feel about it, though, and that is menace. I'd absolutely love this with menace.
Oh, I was going to say affinity.
Moving on.
Or maybe delve. Delve would be kind of cool. Because it does put the rest of them into your graveyard, which is kind of interesting.
That's fair. Then it could just kind of feed into others.
Yeah.
I don't hate that.
All right. Next up, we have VRASKA'S Fall. Now, this is a strong contender for the best black card of the set, for Pauper at least. And by that, I mean the only one that's even close to seeing play, I think. This is a 3-mana instant. For 2 and a black, you get each opponent sacks a creature or planeswalker and gets a poison counter. What do you? I'll let you take point on this one. What do you think?
I love it. This is the card that I was looking through originally this set, and it stuck out so much to me.
Mhm.
If there is that toxic deck or the corrupted deck, this card is in it. Either one of those. Like I know I said there's 2 possible decks you can get corrupted for just like 3 or 4 poison counters, and you kill them with poison or with regular damage.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the infect deck that can just straight up kill them, the other way.
Yeah.
And this makes it in both. I just being able to give they don't even need to have a creature to get the poison counter, which is
so good.
Yeah. I love it.
I have 2 problems with this card. And they're both with nothing to do with the mana box or mana cost or text box. It is all thematic. My only issues with this card is that it seems to be implying that Vraska cutting herself on the blade of a warrior she'd turned to stone was enough to complete her. Because like the whole thing is she's like looking at a bunch of stoned warriors, and there's one with like blood on his blade, and she's like looking back at like a cut on her arm. And like feeling the effects of Phyrexia curdle in her blood. And second, like it was a stone warrior. So you're telling me that a planeswalker who can turn enemies to stone, who's been doing it for her entire life as a battle tactic ever since Ravnica. Isn't that where she's from? I think she's from Ravnica.
I think that's where we first saw her. Right?
But anyway, you're telling me that a powerful being that has the ability to walk the multiverse and an expanded mental capacity to do so without going insane, who's been fighting with her power all her life, not only stones machines, but then found a way to cut herself on said stoned machine while she was stoning other machines. Like, I have no belief in the fact that Vraska cut herself on one of her own statues. Second, Vraska's ability to stone things clearly stones their weapons too, so it was no longer even a Phyrexian blade that she cut herself on. And 2, you're telling me that all it takes is for you to nick someone to complete them? It took literal experimentation and like surgical grafting and like time to complete Tamio. And you're telling me that, not very long later, all they have to do is nick someone with a blade and it completes them for them? What the?
Cordyceps, isn't it?
I just...
Yeah.
I understand the moment needed to be important, but the way they portrayed it seems so lackluster to me. Like, this could have been like an epic battle scene, and instead it's like, oh, I got a paper cut. Oop, okay, well, like, ugh.
I'm just happy it's not like the other Triumph and Fall cards, to where it's like, if you control a something planeswalker, then do this other thing. Because then it'd just be 3 mana sack a creature, then they get a poison counter if you control a Vraska. But that's not. That would make this nowhere near as good as this.
Definitely not. But I like it. Instant speed sacrifice and getting a poison counter without combat is always something to keep an eye on. This is probably the highest playability of the cards in black so far. But we have one more, so let's take a look at that real quick. The next one up is Whisper of the Dross. And it has, it's a single black instant. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn and then proliferate. Instant speed proliferate's pretty good, especially on a 1-mana thing in black. I wish, and I know that they said that they're not going to do it in Phyrexia All is One, but it still makes absolutely no sense to me. I wish this put a -1/-1 counter on something and then let you proliferate. We have so many instances of -2/-2 or +2 -2 for single black at instant speed. I don't see any reason this couldn't have been a -1/-1 counter and then proliferate.
I like that idea with the proliferate. Um, I think that would just be a strictly better virulent wound at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I'm okay with that.
yeah, I mean, it's weird to me because you can't really play virulent wound and Whispers of the Dross in the same deck and get give them the amount of poison counters you want, right? Then you still get 2, unless you don't kill the creature with the second one. No, you do, because it's when it. Yeah, you'd have to. It's weird. It's mind bendy. Why can't this just be better virulent wound?
Yeah, I wish that it was. I mean, I have no reason why this couldn't have been neg one counter. And I hate that we are in a Phyrexian plane and we don't have neg one counters. Like, Skinrender was like a legitimate, like, absolute cornerstone of Magic in Scars of Mirrodin with New Phyrexia. And there were so many instances of neg one counters with Infect. I don't understand why they have a hard stance on no more neg one counters when we return to Phyrexia. Like, this easily could have had a neg one counter on it. The entire proliferate mechanic makes way more sense if you introduce neg one counters into this. All you had to do was say, like, creatures or players dealt. Like, creatures dealt combat damage get -1/-1 counters. Players dealt combat damage get poison counters equal to their toxic level. And all of a sudden, there's tons of neg one counter cards, and proliferate makes way more sense. And there's a better reason to run toxic. I don't know why they took, like, a hard stance like that on a plane that, like, legitimately is covered in neg one counter card. But anyway. That is the last of the black cards. What did you see from black here that you're excited about? Anything besides VRASKA'S Fall? I think that was the keynote card for me.
Yeah, that's the key card, and then there's the other poison counter sorcery that draws 2 and you lose 2.
Mm-hmm. I think Anoint with Affliction is pretty close. I don't know if it'll get there, but I like the idea. Yeah, Infectious Inquiry is a card worth keeping an eye on. Whispers of the Dross, VRASKA'S Fall. Those are all cards that, like, have the right keywords at the right speed for me. And, like, sadly, I think Annihilating Glare being a sorcery is over for it. I think that Cutthroat Centurion was so close to an absolute banger from this set, and unfortunately they hit us with that activate only once each turn text, and now it's bulk. That's kind of it for me.
It's difficult for me because, you know, when these new sets come out, and it's like, I want there to be upgrades, and most of these have not been upgrades. Yeah. It feels like they are taking Phyrexia from when we were on Mirrodin and just toning it down instead of advancing their you know, their technology or abilities, you know, however you want to.
Yeah, it seems to me like the whole Phyrexian mindset is very much like the Borg, like always adapting, always optimizing, always striving for perfection and to make the perfect being, and to be, like, devout and believe in the phyresis, or, believe in Phyrexia, or whatever they want you to, give yourself to. But they're like religious Borg, and I just, it feels like they're actively getting worse.
Like,
it feels like they were better when they took over Phyrexia or when they took over Mirrodin than they are after they've had Mirrodin and the ability to, like, integrate planeswalkers and like advance their tech, and it's gotten less good. Maybe this is, like, maybe this is hubris, maybe it's thematic, and, like, they're meant to be kind of stagnating and getting worse because they've gotten comfortable and no one's really posed a challenge to them, and it's gonna, like, culminate in them getting caught off guard, or, you know, not believing themselves to be infallible, and then the Gatewatch comes out of nowhere and catches them off guard. I have no idea. But it definitely seems like the Phyrexians in this set are much worse than the last time we saw Phyrexia. But anyway, guys, that is the black cards for Phyrexia All Will Be One. Let us know what your pick for the best black card in the set was down below in the comments, and make sure you like the video, click subscribe, do all that fun stuff for the algorithm. As usual, guys, goodbye forever. Unless I see you next time. Peace out.